All right, here we are, episode 2, Mech Talk Podcast. If it's the first time you're watching, I've got 3 segments. The first segment is the weekly rundown, where I tell you my flagged hours and a couple of things throughout the week. Second part is the an opinion I have on something that I will share that's going on in the industry. And third is questions from the comments. People ask me questions in the comment sections, and I answer them. If you want your question answered, leave it in the comments, and I'll get to you in the following week's podcast. So the weekly rundown, tough. I managed to flag. So I did work 6 days this week. So I worked Saturday, but Saturday is only a half day. But I only managed to flag 32.6 hours, okay, throughout the week. Pretty frustrating. It's been a pretty awful week, not going to lie. I will say, though, whatever industry you're in, whatever job you're doing, you're going to have a hard week. You're going to have a hard couple days, whatever it is, especially if your industry kind of ebbs and flows with certain seasons. And I would rather have a hard week being a mechanic than have a hard week working in an office, personally. So while it did suck, I am looking forward to going to work tomorrow, honestly, and trying to make a good week out of it. Um, Couple things, just there were some scheduling problems. We had an issue with the alignment machine at work, and there was a situation that just was not handled well at all, I would say, from the service writer's position, and it cost me many, many hours during one day. Um, Customer came back basically with a really bad shake in their steering wheel after I swapped 4 brand new snow tires and performed an alignment. And apparently that was a month ago. Service writer came, dropped the ticket. He's like, "Hey, we got to get this. There's customers got like a bad problem with their car." And you know, when you reschedule the customer a month later, what's going through my head is how bad really is the problem, and two, how many miles did the customer drive from the last time I did this. So customer drives roughly like 14,000 miles a year. It's a pretty high mileage car. So I had to recheck the entire vehicle. I had to go reperform the alignment because our alignment machine isn't very good. And I was taught. I asked the shop foreman to teach me, like, hey, how do I actually get this alignment machine to work? Because I probably made a mistake on the alignment. So he sat there, he taught me, we did, bam, got the alignment done. And sure enough, the problems still persisted. And, turns out the brand new tire had a slipped belt and road force was completely off. That's what was causing the shake in the steering wheel. And by the time we got through all of that, it was about 4 hours. And you might sit there and ask yourself, well, why did it take that long to do all that stuff? I don't want to get into it too much because I'm just going to get real pissed off, honestly, as I talk about that. So that's what it is. I got really upset. This is the part that I do want to talk about. Um, I got really upset. And for those in the industry, we all know dudes who like lose their cool all the time. I'm not one of those dudes. I don't like to lose my cool, but I do get justifiably really upset every now and then, kind of like what happened this week. How I deal with that. How I deal with that. Typically, I stay quiet and I will use my body language to let people know I'm pissed off. I know that if I use my words while I'm still upset, it's not going to end well for anybody. I'm just going to say probably the truth, but in a way that's super disrespectful and not very professional. So, younger me would have dealt with the situation a whole different way than current me. So, all you young guys in the industry, guys and gals who may be watching this, whether you work in the industry or you work in some other industry, man, how you handle bad situations really makes or breaks everything. Um, I like to cool off. So I'll sit down. I took an early lunch, I sat down, I just kind of chilled out, scrolled my phone, did whatever, calmed down, and I kind of just tried to put into words why I was so upset. first had to ask myself, like, am I allowed to be as upset as I am? I really had to check myself there first. Then after asking myself, am I allowed to be this upset? I go, okay, why am I of this upset? And then what can be done to prevent this happening again? Sat there, wrote all that out, figured it all out, moved on with my day. Didn't took like a half hour, okay, because I just took a lunch. That's what it was. I went up to the service writer, talked to him, squashed it. We're cool. Talked to the service manager. Sir, dude, my service manager is awesome. Like everyone I work with in my dealership is actually pretty cool, but my service manager is awesome. I do want to like high key. That's the like he's the guy who sold me at the dealership. Like if it was a different service manager, I probably wouldn't have taken the job. So everything's pretty good and pretty excited about it. So or I should say like I'm happy the way it ended. I'm happy about the solution we found. I'm happy that the customer is going to get their problem solved. Um, and just got to move forward into the next week and try to prevent this from happening again. And if it does happen again, I have a better way to handle it, right? And better way to deal with it. So I have a new segment now where I've taken videos of interesting things I've done throughout the week, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it a little bit. First thing I want to talk about is this Jeep Gladiator. It's a 2021 Jeep Gladiator with giant wheels and tires, as you can see, and all this incredible aftermarket wiring that has a no crank, no start. It won't crank, it won't start. Put a jump pack on it, the lights won't even turn on. It's a really high quality aftermarket system. Nightlight, which is I'm being sarcastic, some kind of garbage Amazon thing. And those who know about Chrysler and Jeep, which I don't know too much about it, they have this auxiliary battery. There's some really great craftsmanship, or like I guess wiring. You have a smaller gauge wire being connected to a higher gauge wire. None of the there's a bunch of heat shrinks that are not heat shrunk, and basically you have your main battery, and underneath it is an auxiliary battery. And what I found happened is that auxiliary battery shorted and blew a 150 amp fuse. And because Jeep got bought out by Fiat, which is an Italian company, instead of having separate mega fuses, they ended up just having one mega fuse block with 7 mega fuses on it. So had to replace that mega fuse block and had to replace that battery. Didn't get authorization to remove the aftermarket lighting, which is typically something that should happen. But hey, it is what it is. That's what the customer wants, and if the customer wants it, customer gets it. If the battery shorts again, that's really up to the customer. They got to pay me. They got to pay me to do the job again. It is what it is. Put the new battery in. One thing that maybe some other people may not know, you can access that auxiliary battery from the top. So you don't have to go through the wheel well, which I couldn't because the car wouldn't start, wouldn't drive. We just pushed it into my bay. We couldn't get it straight, so I couldn't really lift it. If you remove the fuse box underneath, you can access that auxiliary battery, and that's what I did, and that's how I did it. So pretty cool. Took it for a road test. Jeep Gladiators. I mean, it's like, hey, do you want a Jeep Wrangler that's not as good as an F-150 but costs as much as an F-150? Yeah. Is it cooler than an F-150? Driving it, I think so. It feels great. It feels cool, like you're in second grade driving like a big truck, Would I buy one? No, definitely not. Would I rent one? 100%. I think they're pretty cool. Next up here, I'll show you guys this dude. Dude, this is gross. This is the dirtiest steering wheel. Oh my God. How many sneezes are on this steering wheel? It's the dirtiest steering wheel I've ever seen. A disgusting interior. I put my gloves on before going into the car. I forgot what the repair was. I forgot what the car was in there for. I just remember how disturbingly disgusting that steering wheel is. So listen, man, sometimes you work in a biohazard thing, right? And it's not the best. Next up here, I'm not going to show a video because I have some negative things to say about this. But we had a customer come in who was super, super cheap and wanted a bunch of free work. And listen, while I did have a rough week, I refuse to be taken advantage of. Refuse it. Customer came in. We have what's called a swap four. You're going to swap 4 tires, right? And right now it's tire season, so we're swapping winter tires on all of these cars. This customer comes in, wants to swap winter tires on brand new wheels. I have to build the wheels, so I have to put like I got to put the valve stem in there, the TPMS sensor on it, all that stuff. Put the wheel on it, take the old wheels and tires off, pack the old wheels and tires, put them in their vehicles, do that. But they only wanted to pay. They only wanted to pay for swapping 4 tires. Somehow there was some nonsense going on where this ticket got through to me, which I don't think it should have gotten through to me, but I'm sitting there. One thing I learned is first things first, you got to check the provided snow tires because the customer's providing the snow tires. Check the provided snow tires, and lo and behold, they're 10-year-old tires. So we got 10-year-old tires, which is a no-go. I'll refuse to install those. 10-year-old tires, brand new wheels, got to build the wheels. Customer's like, well, I don't want TPMS sensors. You don't have to put them in. I'm not into doing halfway jobs. I'm a dealership level technician. If I'm at a mom and pop shop, I'm at a mom and pop shop. Do what you got to do. I'm a mobile repair guy. If I'm a mobile tire guy. At a dealership, we got to do things top tier. 1, you're paying top dollar as a customer. 2, there's a lot of liability involved. I don't want to get my hands dirty with liability because a customer is just being cheap. Okay. Gave the ticket back to the service manager. We quoted some winter tires. I was like, listen, dude, I'm going to need more time than the allotted time because I have to build those wheels and pack the other wheels and tires. It's a whole different ball game, and the customer is going to have to buy 4 brand new tires. I'm not installing those tires on. Sure enough, customer took his or her car somewhere else, and that was that. Call it pride, call it whatever it is. For me, it's like I do have pride in my work, and I'm only going to do good work, and I'm only going to do work that pays me. So I'm not I'm not going to sit here, oh, I'm having a bad week, I'll take a bad job. Absolutely not. I'll absolutely not do that. Once you start accepting bad jobs or like, weird jobs like this where, hey, listen, you're going to lose some time on this because we're trying to help the customer, you're going to end up being the technician that gets the bad tickets. They'll be like, you know what? He doesn't mind. Let's just give it to him. It's whatever. He's cool about it. I don't care. If I'm not making money, nobody's making money. Period. End of story. And if they got a problem with that, don't care. It's not my job to bring customers into the door. It's my job to repair vehicles correctly the first time and to repair them to the highest standards. Period. End of story. I'm proud of myself for doing this. And whatever industry you're in, hold your standard. Hold your standard. Hold your standard. Especially if you're in a trade. Customer wants you to do a lower quality job. Don't do it. It's not worth it, especially if it's safety related, you know? And lastly, here, we had a really interesting, it was a Kia Forte. I think it was a 2015, probably a Kia Forte with the customer was, the customer described it as a transmission problem. He's like, oh, my transmission feels like it's slipping when I'm accelerating on the highway. And it's like, man, it's a 10-year-old car. It's got a clutch-based automatic transmission. It's got 108,000 miles. Is the transmission starting to go? So first, I took it on the road test. Sure enough, when you hammer it from low torque speed, you go at low speed and you hammer it like you're merging onto a highway. You not every time, but I got the problem to happen where like you feel a little bit of like a delay and then a little bit of a kick like that. But something I also noticed after the road test, I brought it in and I put it in reverse, and then I got the same feeling at that low speed in reverse. So I'm like, okay, something's going on here, and I don't think it's transmission related. First thing you got to do, is, or the first thing I did, just because that's how my brain works, I got to check the transmission fluid. Because it could be more than just one problem. It could be the transmission and something else, whatever it is. Let me check the trans fluid. I got a video here for you guys about what the trans fluid looks like. And here we go. So there's the vehicle, and the trans fluid looks really good. It's nice, it's it's bright red. It did smell a little burnt, right? It smelled like it was starting to get a funky smell, but it's an old car, and honestly, there was like a lot of funky smells going on in the shop at the time. So I went with the quality of the trans fluid. Trans fluid was nice red. It was clean. So I'm like, it's probably not a transmission problem. Of course, I scanned for codes. There were no transmission codes, no codes at all. Well, there was a TPMS code, but no codes. So the next step was like, well, let me check the motor mounts. And I don't think I don't have a video of the motor mounts, but sure enough, the engine mount, the transmission mount, and the roll restrictor were all worn. So I could actually physically put my hand on the engine and push it, and you will see not a tremendous amount, but you will see what well out of spec movement on the engine mount. And I could actually grab the roll restrictor underneath. And the roll restrictor, for those who are not familiar, is a transmission mount that's like on the bottom and it connects the transmission to the subframe of the vehicle, so that when you accelerate, the engine doesn't like turn, right? So the roll restrictor, I was able to grab it with my hand and actually physically move it with my hand, with a little bit of effort, not so much. So that's what was causing what felt like a transmission problem, was actually just these engine mounts. So customer was concerned, oh man, I might need a whole new transmission. You don't need a whole new transmission. Your transmission is actually in great shape. You're just going to need uh, all three mounts. That's really the best thing to do. Customer keeps that car maintained really well. Sure, he or she wants to keep it for a long time. So I'm recommending the greatest level of repair. Customer gets to choose what they want to do. And lastly, this is on that same forte here. I live in the Rust Belt, and there's a pretty good amount of rust everywhere. And apparently this is like, you ask these rust guys, and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. This isn't too bad. But these fuel tank straps got me really concerned. So I let the customer know about it. And from my understanding, they're just trying to scrape up together some money and figure out a repair schedule, which is pretty cool. So now onto the opinion segment here. Um, I think Kia is the most underrated brand in the entire of all the car companies. And the reason it is underrated is because of the Kia Boys TikTok exposing that the Kia Souls can get stolen super easily with a USB. Um, the Kia Soul is actually a great car outside of that. Something I learned recently is that the Kia Souls in Canada, you can't do that to, because they have immobilizers, because it is a law in Canada that every vehicle must be built with an immobilizer. But in America, it's not the law. You do not have to build a new vehicle with an immobilizer, which an immobilizer basically immobilizes the vehicle unless you have the proper key and everything inside and all the electronics talk to each other. So all the Kia Souls and a couple of other the Kias, the lower end Kias built in America, don't have an immobilizer. So you could just go in there and steal them. And so you had the tremendous thefts going on with the Kia Souls. You had the engines blowing up on the Kia Souls and the Sorrentos and a couple other vehicles, the GDI, the gas direct engines. But it's like the tremendous amount of negativity around the Kia brand revolves around a meme level, like, bad luck when it comes to the Kia Soul. And honestly, dude, bang for buck, Kia's got the best vehicles on the market, especially the new ones. You get all the nice big screens, you got hybrids, plug-in hybrids, full electric cars, you got performance cars, you got huge SUVs for a relatively low price. It's pretty great. Um, I think that if you're in the car market, especially now, it's the end of the year. If you're in the car market, give Kia a shot. You're going to get a lot more luxury and a lot more technology for the money. And outside of the older vehicles having engines blowing up, they're pretty great. They don't really break down. Their all-wheel drive systems work. They don't really have too many recalls coming out. Like there's some small recalls that are just super quick for the most part, and they're great. I won't die on that hill, but I'll almost die on that hill. All right, and lastly, we have questions from the comments section. So we have quite a few questions from the comments. If you want your question answered, leave them in the comments at the bottom of this video and I'll answer them in the next podcast. So I have here Not a Mechanic 24, which is a great username. On the topic of remote starts, question for next week. Is it possible to install a remote starter on a manual transmission? Is there a way to tie the remote starter to a gear selection signal to make sure it only starts while not in gear? Car in question is a manual swapped Acura TSX wagon. That's cool, dude. Um, a manual swapped Acura TSX wagon. So this guy, Not a Mechanic, I'm assuming it's also J-Swap too, right? That's pretty cool. If not, whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's probably a J-Swap manual transmission Acura TSX wagon. That's awesome. Yes, you can install a remote start on a manual transmission. You have to make sure you buy a remote start kit that can do that. You have to see if your vehicle has some kind of like immobilizer or some kind of special um, system that only works with a certain type of remote start system. And from my understanding, I don't really do aftermarket remote starts, but I am looking for a remote start for my manual transmission 2004 Honda CRV. You can do a gear selector option, but you're going to have to kind of scour the internet. I'm not too sure about it, but I know it's possible. And I know, especially if that's an older vehicle, it's probably relatively inexpensive. And I hope that helped, my friend. Um, there's a username here with a lot of consonants in their names. Do you recommend dash cams? 100,000%. If you look, you don't need an expensive dash cam. You don't need a $400 or $700. Get yourself like a $60 dash cam if that's what your budget is. Always just having some kind of evidence in front of you is so important. Whether it's someone trying to commit insurance fraud, or somebody brake checking you, or some kind of accident happening, or like just something crazy is going on, especially live in an area with like really bad weather, definitely recommend the dash cam. That's what dash cam? I don't know. There's a lot of them out there. I could probably like start linking my TikTok shop because I do have a dash cam in my TikTok shop, and you could try to use that. Let's see. We have another one from the gentleman with many consonants in his name. I'm looking to install a backup camera and hoping it will be wireless. How do you suggest I go about this? I am pretty sure they sell some wireless Bluetooth based backup cameras, and that typically comes with one of those rear view camera like adapters where like it's a rear view camera plus a dash cam. Hey, actually, that's both questions in one. It'll be like a dash cam plus a rear view mirror plus a rear view camera, and they sell them. You're for something like that, you're going to want to pay more money for it. Um, but other than that, I wouldn't do anything that would have you remove a radio and put a new radio in your car. I think that's just too much money and too much hassle for a backup camera personally. But if that's something you want to do, then you can go ahead and do that. All right, we have M. Sarur. What regular maintenance should I consider to prevent future issues? What signs should I look out for that might indicate problems in the future? Oh, that's a great question. You didn't let me know what your car was, so I'll just generally speaking, get your oil changes done on time. Number one, it's a number one thing. Get your oil changes done on time. Use full synthetic oil. Just do it. Use your full synthetic oil, regular maintenance on time. Every vehicle has a maintenance schedule. You'll be able to find it online. It'll tell you at 20,000 miles, you're going to need this, or check this at 50,000 miles, at 100,000 miles. As long as you do the regular maintenance and get all the maintenance interval stuff done on time, most cars will last indefinitely unless there's some kind of inherent manufacturer or like design engineering problem. Ford, Dodge, Chrysler, Kia too. you know, what signs should I look out for that might indicate problems in the future? Age. I think age is the number one um, factor that a lot of people overlook. So let's say, oh, I bought a vehicle, it's only 5 years old. Dude, yeah, 5 years old. It's only 5 years old. It's got 70,000 miles. It's got 60,000 miles. 60, 70,000 miles is a lot. And 5 years is 5 years. 5 years where I am is way different than 5 years, in Arizona, right? Or 5 years in Nevada, right? I'm in the Rust Belt. 5 years up here, hey, your bushings are probably going to start going, right? 5 years out there, you're probably set. Um, belts, every belt, timing belt, serpentine belt, water pump belt, AC belt, 5 years. You just bought the car, buddy. If the belts weren't replaced, replace the belts, because if and when those belts snap or they slip, you could have problems, especially if you have a timing belt. So age is something that you got to think about, and also any kind of change in drivability. So if you're driving and then one day you're driving and your steering wheel starts to shake, address it sooner rather than later. Don't wait until the shake is so bad you can't drive the car. If you hit the brakes and all of a sudden, like, you're not stopping as quickly as you're used to, or you feel like a vibration in the brake pedal, get that done. It doesn't mean your car is breaking down. It doesn't mean it's just wear and tear items. So those are my answers for you there, my friend. Let's see here. OMM141996. My wife let her friend drive her car. Oh boy. Her friend was speeding, taking an exit, switching onto another highway. There was a car that had stopped in the merge lane and she didn't see it because of the car in front of her, which suddenly jerked into the corner, into the shoulder grass area, and she did the same thing. Took the Tesla off-roading now. There's a shaking in her wheels that won't go away. We tried rebalancing and rotating the tires. Any ideas of what this could be? That's really annoying, OMM141996. Sorry to hear that. You tried balancing and rotating the tires. I wonder if there's a bent wheel. Okay. You can balance bent wheels. Absolutely. I would check to see if there's a bent wheel. And a way you could look at it, right, is you could see if one of the wheels or multiple wheels have a whole lot of wheel weights on them. And depending on the Tesla, if you remove that aerodynamic disc on the wheels, the spokes have a lot of space in between them, and you should be able to see like the wheel weights. If one of the wheels has like a bunch of wheel weights on it, that wheel's bent, and they just managed to balance it that way. Um, that impact could have also damaged the tires, one of the tires, and shifted a belt in the tire, and you could have what's called excessive road force, which is the same deal that happened in that Sedona that I talked about earlier in the podcast. And lastly, it could be a suspension related issue. So ideally, you got to take it to a mechanic, probably the dealership. I don't know if that Tesla's still under some kind of warranty. Take it to a dealership, have them check it out, have them see if something is bent or broken or what have you, or if or maybe the wheel weights fell off of the wheel. But you just had them rebalanced and rotated. Yeah. So get someone to check it out. If there's some kind of real serious damage, then you might have to get insurance involved, and you might have to get your wife's friend's insurance involved. But could be, I most likely take it off roading pretty quick. Probably bent a wheel, I can imagine, because I think everything else is much harder to break on those Teslas. They are pretty beefy. And I think I have one more question here. Let me check this out. Lastly, all right, this is the last one. Logan Walsh. Hey, new to the podcast. Being a hobbyist driving mechanic, have you seen my 10 millimeter socket? All right, I have a confession to make. Every time someone loses their 10 millimeter socket, it teleports into this dimension that ends up in my toolbox. So yes, I've seen your 10 millimeter socket. It is in my toolbox. No, you can't have it back. So, um, hey, with that said, thanks so much for tuning in for episode 2 of the Mech Talk podcast. If there's anything you guys want me to talk about, drop it in the comments. If you have a question you want me to answer, drop it in the comments. If you have any suggestions on how I can make this funner, better, easier to consume, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys next week.